Hey there again, Douglas Scott McCarron. So, we've talked about discovery. Again, the example, you have the tree that produces a fruit. You go down to look at the roots of the tree. They're hidden in the earth. They produce a particular type of fruit, apples, oranges. You discover the roots. You take the dirt off it, and you uncover not just the main roots, but thousands and thousands of these little tiny roots kind of intertwining, going all over the place. Much like a human's personality. This is why I'm bringing it up. You recover it in order to make sure the tree stays alive and doesn't die so it can keep producing fruit. But the thing is, if you're good discovery and recovery, you just keep producing the same fruit, which is fine if you say you want to be an apple type person or an orange type person or outgoing or hesitant. But what if you want to be something completely different? And that's where transformation comes in. It's interesting. Transform means to go from one form to another form. So it means that literally you kind of like got to walk away from the tree that you're used to. And that's quite a bit different. Like musically, who was it? Linda Ronstadt played a lot of country rock for a long time, and then she went over to Mexican folk songs and show tunes and things like that. Big change, but not necessarily going to say Oriental folk music or Middle Eastern music. That would be more of a transformation. She stayed in a lot of the same keys, the same patterns. Very lovely. I'm just saying, though, if you want a different tree, transformation, you want to go from one form to another, you really have to change. I can't remember who talked about it, but it was a quote I saw, the difference between translation and transformation. Most people, when they say transforming, they mean translation. So if I say in English, I want money, and I say in Spanish, yo quiero dinero, and if I say in German, ich möchte Geld, they all mean I want money. They sound different, but they're the same thing. So nothing's really actually different, though they sound different. Transformation was you go from a form to a completely different form. And I just want to bring this up because I used to be very mean, vindictive, self-loathing, self-recriminating, hair trigger, ready to attack you before you attacked me kind of guy. And then, of course, I would sit around and wonder, why doesn't anybody want to talk to me? That proves that they all suck because they won't talk to me. Kind of ignoring that I'm sitting there glaring at you and making it impossible for you to be friendly with me. But I had the experience of actually having all of that stop one day. Like literally that whole internal conversation and all those feelings just charging along since the day I was born, just all went. And this part of me I never even knew existed just woke up. It's the only way I can describe it. It was like it was asleep in a dream, and it just went. And I suddenly became much calmer, much friendlier. I love myself. I'm supportive of others. And we're talking in just like a couple of days. It still took me a couple of years to actually go, is this real? But it quite literally just. But I can't really, I couldn't do it until I was ready. I could sit here and go, well, I should have transformed back in those days. But you have to go discover. You have to look at the tree and see what sort of fruit you got. And then you got to go discover the roots and find out why. Like, I felt unloved and unwanted. And my parents didn't want me. But when I went back and looked at it, I realized when I was 3 or 4 years old, it was more, they didn't love me the way I wanted to, so I rejected them. They didn't reject me. They loved me the way they knew to do it. You know, they came, their parents were World War II parents. My dad was in the Korean War. My mom was, you know, my mom, for instance, couldn't own a car unless my dad bought it. And she couldn't actually own it. It had to be in his name. This is back in the 60s. So he was posted in Korea. He was an Army officer. And we were back in the United States. And she couldn't get a car to go run errands. My dad had to get a notarized letter and send it from Korea to the car dealership saying he authorized her to have that car. Very different times. And it was interesting because, you know, everyone talks about how the Army is very narrow-minded and rigid. Yet it was the Army officer who was like, well, of course my wife can drive. I mean, what the hell? It was the civilians who were like, no, can't do that. You know, my dad was far more likely to get killed than she was because he was in the Army. So it was interesting. And I grew up with that, and my dad would come in, and I felt he had this tone of voice. He's an Army officer. They have this way of talking, which doesn't sound terribly friendly. And he'd walk up to me after work, and he'd walk up to me and go, how was your day today, son? And I'd sit there and go, because I felt like I was being attacked verbally. But if you just listened to him, what he said was, how was your day today, son? It was just the tone of voice, and it wasn't the way I wanted it. So I was like, oh, you don't love me. And there was a whole bunch of other stuff. You know, they had all their issues. I had all my issues. And that's one thing to get is, I always had it that, you know, my parents should be the way I want to, forgetting that I'm in all of my issues and all of my upbringing. Well, so are they. And until they wake up to it and try and do something about it, they can't do anything. And my dad actually strove very hard. There were some things I did where he wanted to punish me, but he didn't. He was trying to be understanding. His dad, if anything got broke, he got whooped. There was him and 2 sisters. He was the boy. He's the one who got whooped. So his sisters would go and break things, and he'd get whooped. And he pretty much came with the attitude of, no matter what I do, I'm going to get whooped. I can't do anything right. And he was dealing with that, trying to raise me. So it wasn't just, I felt like they'd rejected me. I was actually fulfilling his whole, he's a failure. I'm just liking him, proving that he's not a good father. So we had this whole cycle going on. Now, if I translate this, if I discover and recover, that would be, oh, I see, I rejected them and my dad was this way, so that's the way I am, and I just have to understand it and live with it, and I got a nice calm explanation, and I'll just stay that way. Transformation is walking away from all that and becoming something different. It's like you're looking at the tree with the fruit that comes out of it, and you look at all the roots. You look at the whole structure of what my life has been. That's the tree represents who you are, what you are in life. Your fruit is the result of what you are in life. The roots feed it. And I was always trying to discover it and recover it and make it better. But it finally dawned on me the thing to do was to simply walk away from the tree. But you can't do that until it's time. First you have to discover and recover, and then walk away. I used to be, very upset that I couldn't make it in the music business. I must not be very good. But now I sit here and I play guitar for myself and for my friends, and everything's cool. And back before there was recorded music and music contracts and television, you know what musicians did? They played for their friends and themselves. As it's been. You get to be the muse that brings in God's music. And there's something about music that it's very mathematical, it's very orderly, it's very structured, it's very emotional, it's very sensual, and sound seems to do something that words don't. Not that words are bad, but sound, I believe, is where we actually are. Words help. They also get in the way. If I sit there and I want to tell you something, I go, you may not understand what I want. If I go, I want you to take this thing and put it over there, no, you still get into the discussion of what is the thing and what is there. But it's a little clearer than that's transformation. You go from making the sounds to words, but really transforming, I think you sort of have to have the structure and the lack of structure at the same time. I used to try to be the human being. I would try to find the right way of being. What was the true me? It's taken me till now to realize all of it is me. So I'm moving from the form of what's wrong with me. I need to find the right, true me, and transforming to all of me. Now I want to start singing that song, All of Me. Same with music. Some musicians, you know, there's a lot of people laugh at the Doors, but they would mix jazz and Indian ragas and blue all in one song. It was, when you sit there and you know the music and you listen to it, it's just like, wow, how'd you do that? It's funny, Jim Morrison is the one they're famous for, and he was actually the least talented. Oh well, people identify with the words, not the music. Anyway, so you have discovery, where you're uncovering the roots of the tree, the structure, so you can see where the fruit comes from. You recover the roots so the tree can still produce what it does, apples, oranges, whatever. And then there's, do I want to be that tree anymore? I didn't want to be dark and miserable and vindictive. And now I'm not. So, discover, recover, transform. All right, thank you.